everyone, and welcome to the Latinx Business Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Gomez, and if you're looking to demystify the world of business through the raw, authentic stories of Latinx entrepreneurs, you've come to the right place. As someone with an MBA and an IRS enrolled agent license, I've spent years helping freelancers, partnerships, and S corporations navigate the often tricky waters of the U.S. tax law. Now, I'm bringing that expertise and passion to this community right here. So thank you for tuning in, and you know what? It's time to talk business. Hi, Ricardo. Thanks for coming on to the Latinx Business Podcast Show. How are you this morning?
Hi, Randy. Well, thank you for having me. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much.
To start the show, let's start with some of our basic questions that we ask, right? So what's your preferred pronoun? And the next question after that would be, how do you identify within the Latinx community?
Sure. My preferred pronoun is he or him. I do believe it's important, and I appreciate that you open up the space for the inclusivity of people, being able to say and represent themselves as who they are. And I think that sets the tone for the conversation, and I really appreciate that you do that in all of your podcasts. As far as what I identify as is, I'm definitely a proud Latino. I identify as Salvadoran American. So I was born in El Salvador, but then raised in the United States and moved here when I was about between 10 and 11. So it's a bit of a mix of a culture. It really made me appreciate, I think, my culture in general, but also understand that there are differences and uniqueness in between them.
Yes, definitely. Cool. So then it's safe to say that you identify as a Salvadoran American.
That's right.
Okay, awesome. And then Latino, and then I know we didn't get into this, but you are part of the LGBTQIA community, right? So you definitely identify as queer, gay.
Absolutely.
Like which is the one that you prefer?
Yes, I am a gay man. I'm actually married. So I've been married since, oh my goodness, he's going to kill me, 8 years now. Okay. And we have two beautiful kids. So we are parents to a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, maybe we can get into that if we have a little bit of time towards the end of the podcast and how that journey's been for you. So I'm also a gay man, right? But I don't have kids, but I have clients, so I prepare taxes all year round for small businesses, S corps, and partnerships. But I do have gay clients that have gone through that journey, and it's been a journey, right? It's both for women and for men.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So each one has their different struggles and expenses. Right? So it's not cheap to make babies as a LGBTQIA person, but I'm very, very happy to hear that you have two kids and that, you guys, it's been a pleasant journey for you.
And it doesn't stop either, by the way. It's a financial component to it at the beginning, but then you have the kids and that gets bigger and bigger and bigger as they get older. But it's rewarding and we love it, so it's all worth it.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right. Well, so you did tell me you were from El Salvador. So tell me a little bit about your family, like a little background on your heritage, and is your whole family from El Salvador, or how did you guys also end up here in the U.S.?
My family's all from El Salvador. We do have some heritage from Spain, from my mom's side, and from Saudi Arabia, actually, from my dad's side. However, from my grandparents down to my parents' generation, they were all born in El Salvador. And then we had some family that actually lived in the United States, in different parts of the United States, and we would often come and visit during the holidays. And there was a point in time when I actually had the idea to want to come and see what it would be like to study here. So we went through the process of getting a student visa and had the opportunity to come and experience what it would be like to get education in the United States, get more familiar with the language and the culture. And I liked it enough to where I ended up doing that from the time that I first moved here. I think it was from 12 until about 16, when my family ended up then deciding that they were ready to also make the move and move down here and be closer to our family in this area.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but did you come in here, did you come first by yourself? Or
Yes, actually I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
You came first at 11, 10 years old and you stayed and then your family followed you?
Yeah, well, and I didn't come alone. We had family here, so it still felt like home somewhat. And my mom and my brothers would come and visit during the holidays, so I still get to see them. Or I would go down and visit El Salvador, depending on what was going on. But yeah, it was by myself. And to be honest, right, if I'm being completely transparent, part of the reason of why I decided to make the move here is growing up in El Salvador as a gay man, as a gay boy at the time, it was pretty tough. And I didn't really understand why it was so tough for me to make friends and make connections, and why was it that people saw me different. So it initially felt a little bit like escape, maybe an opportunity to reset and have a new beginning where I could make friends and I could have a life like what I saw on TV.
Yeah.
But and from that, I think coming here, I realized that it could be different, and it was a more comfortable place for me to be in. So then that was part of the motivation of why I ended up making the move by myself. It was, obviously tough being away from family, but ironically it felt easier than being in the environment that I was in.
Right. I mean, I can only imagine being less stressed out or feeling more free and feeling like you could be yourself out here versus in El Salvador you couldn't. It's so interesting to me that at age 10, 11, so you knew at that age that you were gay? Or you didn't know?
In El Salvador, I don't know, maybe I don't really know what it would be like to grow up here at the times that I did, right? But like those conversations weren't really happening often, and if they did, they didn't necessarily happen in a positive light. But I don't know that I had a system to identify whether I was or wasn't, or the maturity to understand it. I knew that I was different, and I understood that there were things about me that people, when they saw me interact with them, speak, they felt that they were feminine or more, and so I got placed into this category of things. So I don't know that I knew that I was gay, but I knew that it was tough for me to make friends, and that everybody else thought that I was gay. So it made me think about that. And I remember actually being in my room listening to this song. I think it's called "I'm Gonna Change the World," and I told myself, maybe I can change my world. And
wow, yeah.
Just asked my mom. I still remember actually that day. I went and asked my mom and I said, what would you think about me, testing this out? My tia lived here, right? And she called my tia the next day. I think they maybe thought that it was a joke at first. And after speaking with her, she said, hey, if you really want to go through with this, she's open to it and we can go through the process. So we did.
That's really interesting, because at age 10 you're feeling really uncomfortable. I feel like that kind of, it's a very similar story to a lot of gay men, but and even lesbians and transgender individuals. But for myself, I think growing up, like you said, I always felt different. I could never make friends with the guys, or if I made friends, it was always with the girls, and I just felt more comfortable. And then there was things I would tell myself like, no, I feel more comfortable with girls because I have 3 sisters and my mom, and my dad's always at work, so I never see him.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of my excuse or way to be like, oh yeah, I'm straight,
Yeah.
Or also I really as a child wasn't really aware of sexuality. It wasn't really for me something that I was like, oh, I like this person or like that. It wasn't until I don't know, high school or college I was just more open to that kind of stuff, right? So for me, I also, yeah, I can relate to the fact that you didn't feel comfortable. I didn't know what it was. I never knew what it was. Or maybe I didn't have the language to express what I felt or what was going around my surroundings. But just like you said, even in Los Angeles, I grew up in East LA, right? So in East LA, everyone listens to the Spanish music, and there's it's just very Mexican.
Yeah.
Super, super Mexican, which I love, right? I love it. I go back all the time and I'm I love being here. And especially now because I live in a suburb and it's so different. However, it always felt weird. I never felt like one of the guys. I never felt like one of them, like one of those guys and I didn't act like them. And my dad had me in sports, and, I've always been a really tall individual. So I'm 6'1", so, for a Mexican, that's kind of rare.
Yeah.
They had me playing basketball, football, soccer, baseball. And even though I excelled at it, I never loved it, I love going to games now. I love seeing stuff now. But that's because as an adult, I realized oh, I really do enjoy the sport, Which is so different versus when you're being forced to do something. But also at the same time, I think in high school, in elementary and middle school, I always felt uncomfortable every single day. And I never knew what it was. But in middle school, I met my best friend, who's still my best friend, and she's a major ally, you know? She like protected me, just like my sisters protected me and all throughout my life. But yeah, it's such a similar story. Just that feeling of not feeling like you're part of this community or that you belong there. So like for you to have taken that step at such a young age to be like, I need to change this for myself. That's like massive self awareness that I don't even know if like a child that's like that young has nowadays, right? But especially with all the social media stuff
Yeah,
and the
but
disconnection. But yeah, no, I commend you for that. Thanks for sharing that.
and as crazy as it sounds, like, I remember there was a point in time at school that I was getting in trouble, and I was like, I want to stop getting in trouble. So then I picked the person in the class that always did well. And I said, I'm going to try to do everything that she does. Actually, I still remember her name. Her name was Rocio. I was like, I'm going to do everything she does. And then I tried to like mimic just like her behavior as much as I could, the way that she interacted. And then my mom got called down to school, I think like a month later or so. And I was like, gosh, I'm in trouble again. I don't even know how. And ironically, she was called down to school to let them know of the improvement in my behavior. And it was a positive thing. And so then I remember thinking, wow, that really worked well. So maybe I can apply that to like, this like feminism that I have, right? Or like the mannerisms and all this. So I started watching like the news and TV shows and try to like identify like what makes this more masculine, what makes this more feminine, and like how do I walk? How do they walk? It's like, and I try to imitate it. And I was trying to hide it as much as I could, but it's just who I was. And it was hard to really force yourself to do that. But all I wanted to was just make friends and feel like everybody else.
Yeah, no, I totally get that feeling, right? And at the end of the day, you want to be part of community. I feel, and that's also where people thrive and where people become more successful individuals of any community. But no, thank you for sharing that. I think that's very important. I don't think we talk about that too much outside of our regular lives. One, because I know you're a business owner, I'm a business owner, you're super busy. Trust me, like I come into the office and I'm like, shoot, it's already 1 p.m.
Yes,
Right?
I agree.
So I feel you. But yeah, so let's talk about your business. So let's talk about your business and what work you do, and like how you started your company.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I run Poppy Marketing and Consulting. What we do is we help small business owners, especially those with a purposeful message or those in the LGBTQIA plus community, Latinx, to really be able to show up authentically in the workplace. And it's a combination of being able to craft a story that feels genuine and authentic, but also simple to understand, and then a representation of what that visual appeal of what that is, right? And then we combine all of that and try to then figure out how do we help business owners be able to automate tasks that are taking up their time so that it can save their time where they need to, and then they can spend it more where their dream is, which is handling with customers, figuring out their strategy, and really helping run the smooth and use their brain where it needs to be at, right? Not the administrative task. So it's all a combination of really understanding why you do what you do, how does that show up in community, and then how do we make you or prepare you to be efficient and scalable once you're at the point.
Okay. And let's take a small step back. So how did you end up in marketing? Tell me that journey. Like, how did you end up saying this is enough, right?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna focus just on LGBT business owners and help them tell their stories. How did you get to that point?
Yeah. So I worked in corporate for about 17 years, a little bit over 17 years, for a Fortune 500 company where I was, climbing the ladder and, started in the retail side, ended up in the corporate side, and then made my way into the marketing part of the business, which I did for the last 7 years of my career. Within that, I really started to learn and truly understand how little people know about crafting a message and how easy it is to get to like the executing point and the doing of things, and skipping the fundamentals of like what is your objective, like what is your why, and what is the purpose, because that ends up really being the compass of everything that you do. So I got really obsessed with like, how do you simplify that process? How do you do that better? How do I teach the people around me to be able to do that better so that we can craft better work and do better things? And then as I started to think of ideas or business ideas for myself and finding inspirations that were true to me, we had the idea, my husband and I had the idea of like writing a children's book. This was a little bit after my son was born, and we really enjoyed reading to him as much as we could, right? And realized that like they really pay attention and they're listening to what you're saying, and the words that you use and the things that you show them matter at any age. So we wanted to create a book that represented the principles that we wanted him to learn, and to be able to leave something for other parents to use as a tool to talk about diversity. So then we wrote the book, The Rainbow Bee. And that was my first exposure of like doing marketing outside of my corporate job and like what it's like to get out there in the world. And what I realized is that there isn't always an outlet or a platform for LGBTQ plus owners or Latino or Latinx, business owners to just like be easily as marketable. And I think there's a tendency of like, how do we blend in more into the mainstream marketing world, and how do we look more like everything else? And that wasn't working when we were doing the book. What really did work was understanding who we were, why we did what we were doing, and we leaned into who we are. Gay parents, a biracial couple. Like we really leaned into who we were and told a story and the why behind the inspiration of our book, in a natural way. And that resonated. People connected to that. We were able to really connect with the audience that wanted to have books like what we did, to be able to tell stories and representation in the way that we did. So then that's how it really kind of started that fire in me on like, how can I help others be able to tell the story? But more specifically, how can I help people in my community that I understand, maybe a little bit better than someone who wouldn't be in the community, be able to tell their stories and be able to like simplify their message and encourage them and empower them to lean into their difference, which is really their superpower, which ironically is what the book is about as well. But I think that really is, where like this fire came in, where I was starting to realize that I was building, and I was doing it really well. I was building somebody else's dream in my corporate world, and I wanted to build my dream, right? Like I didn't just want to sit at the table, I wanted to own the room. So I then came up with the idea of like starting this opportunity of helping others do what I know can be hard and that I understood how to do well.
So taking marketing, and it does seem like such a different world, right? Marketing for so many people, like they tell you, start your own business, but then they don't tell you they have to be the marketer, you have to be the bookkeeper,
oh my gosh, everything.
You have to be HR, you have to be the financial CFO, you have to be the tax guy too, maybe if you're just starting off. And so it's so much. So I like the idea that you're helping entrepreneurs kind of tell their story in their own words, because I feel like, what we see on TV or maybe what we see like on social media, maybe not so much social media, but like traditional marketing like streams is just not us, right? I feel like when I went on my own, it was actually, I did a little bit different. I kept my job. So I kept my job full time. I know a lot of people quit their jobs and then they go off and do their businesses, or people, keep a job part time maybe, and then they do the other thing until it takes off. I kept my full-time job up until COVID. And then COVID, I was like, I had a surgery and I was like, I'm not going back. I'm immunocompromised and I'm not going back. But at that point, I had already garnered enough business clients and individuals to kind of like, carry me through the year of expenses and income and stuff like that. So it's really, and I'll be 100% honest right now. You're saying like, tell your true authentic story. And I don't know if sometimes I'm 100% authentic myself, right? Mm-hmm. Because like, I feel like going on social media, doing all this stuff and like revealing your life and stuff like that. And I'm more of a private person, and I'm like, hey, but they tell us to do all that. Like for me, it's, and I see it as a whole nother job. Like I think that aside from all that I want that to be private, I think marketing and like doing social media stuff and stuff like that becomes its own other job. Like a whole nother position. Like I don't have a whole nother position as an individual. So if you could help me do that, that's amazing. If you could help me like automate the marketing and stuff like that, or just make it maybe like 5 times easier than what I think. Because in my head, it's like 100 times hard to do it all on my own, right? And then you see these individuals that are doing it. So I wonder, right? I'm like, hey, like what? Like how is it that one person can get all this out And sometimes I'm like, wait, they only have like one or two team members on their team. It's not even like a team of like 20 people, like for that one social media account. Because I also have like influencers who are my clients, right? So it's very interesting, but I'm glad that, you help entrepreneurs with that. So like, in what sense do you think, like how do you assess a company then when you bring them on as a client? Like, tell me about that process.
Yeah. I always start with the question of like tell me why you started the business. Like what was the drive behind it? And what was your dream with it? And as simple as that question is, it really does trigger and remind people of their purpose, and they get really excited about it, and then they start just kind of telling you all the different things that drove them to where they are. And then we talk about like, what is your day like? Like tell me a little bit more about like what you do on a day to day, what takes up most of your time. And just identify where they are in the current state of their business, and knowing where they want to be. It's take all of that, and then we do a full assessment of what tools are you using, how are you communicating, what is your customer journey like. And sometimes people don't know. They really don't know. They just they go at it day by day. They know that it happens a certain way, and they think that because it's working for them right now, it's the right way to do it. But they are in a position where their time is so tight that they don't have the ability to like scale their business or see like out new opportunities of business, because they're doing so many manual things, or maybe their message is not clear enough. They spend too much time explaining who they are and what they do. Take all of that and then help give them a proposed solution. I mean, I remember when I first started in helping a photography business that was doing well. They were busy all the time, but they were keeping track of like all of their appointments in a notebook, and then going back and putting it in their calendar. And they were doing just everything so manual, and the thought of taking on technology seemed so overwhelming to them. Yeah. So we did some simple things, like steps at a time, right? Like in their website, we added the option to book from there. Then we connected their calendars, and we started just automating some things. And all of a sudden, they were like, I am getting so much more business just from like the easiness of people being able to do things on my website rather than having to call me and message back and forth and then making the decision. Right? We help them make their process smoother for their customers. So then that naturally brought in more business, and it freed up time for them to be able to take care of that business. So it's things like that.
And I can see that too, how if you free up some of their time on their day-to-day operations, then they could have a little bit more time to do some more marketing or videos, or, the biggest thing for me is like, I have to sit down and record this. Yeah. Or I have to go and like, I have to sound perfect on when I post, like I probably recorded like, I don't know, like 6-7 times before I'm like, this is the one that I'm going to use. So like, and that's also like 30-45 minutes later. Right, so I'm like, oh yeah, this is like for me, right? But I mean, if you can help businesses like that, I mean, that would be amazing, and people should reach out to you for that, So, but yeah, also at the end of like the show, I'll ask you like for how people can get a hold of you, right? I can even just say it now. So how people would get a hold of you, like through email, phone, your website. What's the best way to contact you if they're a small business and they want to get help from you, and then
Yeah. The easiest way is our website. It's poppymarketingandconsulting.com. And that's poppy like the flower, not poppy as in like I'm a poppy. But then we also have an Instagram, which is at poppymarketingandconsulting. And that would be the easiest way for you to get a hold of us.
All right. And then question, not sure if I read this on your website or not, but why did you choose Poppy?
So I think choosing the name of the business is always something that it's got to be personal, it's got to be perfect. I thought of all of these professional names that it could be, and I just remember my kids just always calling me Papi, 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 and remember reading about the poppy flower, and known for its resilience and its creativity, and just it all just kind of, for me, it felt like I like the message of what the flower stands for, and it kind of sounds like what my kids call me. So that felt right for me. I felt like with that and the message behind, the resilience and creativity and how we can help other businesses, do the same, it felt natural and good for me.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. So the reason I also asked is because like I'm in California, so the poppy flower, I think, is the official flower of the state of California. But you're in remind me again, you're in New York. Houston, Texas.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to be in Dallas next month. No, not this month, sorry, August, for a podcast conference.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. Okay. I just always connect things, right? So sorry.
Yes, yeah, no. That's how we remember things.
But yeah, no, cool. Let me go back to the questions. I mean, all right. So this one you kind of answered, but I'm still gonna ask you just so that there's a specific moment that you answered this question in the podcast. So your work focuses on helping small business owners, particularly Latino and LGBT entrepreneurs, to build authentic brands. Why is it so important for underrepresented founders to lead with storytelling, and how does that storytelling differ from mainstream marketing tactics?
Yeah, I think it's because a lot of our stories, I think just like systematically have been left out of the spotlight, and I think it's important that we bring those forward. And I think you talk about like making sure that our voices, or like our stories are that generational voice, right, that carries on through our legacy. And so I think that it's important to know that like your story has power, right, and like what you've gone through, even though it may feel small, people will still identify with it. So if you don't include that into why you started and why it is that you do what you do, you're just another company, another corporation out there, right? Part of the inventory. But when you put that unique twist to it, when you really understand who you are and what drives you here, then you not only find the purpose and the way to be able to tell your story clearly, but you also help define your customer a little bit more because you know how you can best serve them. So, I think that is really, for me, what drove the inspiration of representing our community in that way. Because I remember feeling inspired when I saw others like me do things that I didn't think were possible for people like me. So I encourage business owners to use their story as their superpower and their identifier, because it's the smallest things, it's the connection that you make that drives people to do business with you when there are so many choices, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because you're not the only marketing firm out there. I'm not the only tax and bookkeeping firm out there either as well. And you're right. I want to work with people that want to work with me,
Yes.
first and foremost, and that value my work and my experience and the value I'm going to bring to their companies as well. Not only in tax, but bookkeeping, right? And like general advice all year long. You mentioned something about storytelling and generations. Oh yeah, so what that triggered for me right now was that you're very right. I think I started this podcast because I wanted people to just have this information available to them. If they're starting a business or if they're running a business and they're saying like, how did that person do this, right? Like, how can I continue running my business? Or, little stories here and there that can help a business owner. But also in terms of generational knowledge and wealth, I think I always find myself passing down information to my nephews. So I have two nephews, they're my godsons. Both of them, they're like my sons, right? So one is already 16 and the other one's 8. So big age difference, but I find myself that when I lean in and have private conversations with my nephew, those are some of the conversations I had with my father growing up. Right? So that in that moment, I see the three generations connecting and I see the passing of knowledge and information. And there's days or there's times where I like talk to my nephew and he's just like, oh yeah, I know that. And you do it like this and this and that. And I'm like, wait, how do you know that? I didn't know that at your age. Like, I just feel like he has so much more knowledge at a certain age compared to where I was at his same age. And I love that. First and foremost, I think that's like one of the most beautiful things in the world, to be able to like share that moment with like one of your loved ones. Because you care so much for them, right? And you're giving them something that they're going to use in the future. So in creating my podcast, that was one of the first things I thought of, but also it was one of the things that I just wanted to say. Like, I felt like I was alone here in the US starting my own business. I went to business school. Most of my family lives in Mexico. I do have uncles and aunts and family members that are business owners, but they're in Mexico. They're not in the US. Right? So I think in my own journey, I always felt alone in that sense. But I also felt that like there was others out there that were doing it, but we're all just working in silos, right? Like we're all. And, not because we don't want to bring other people up with us or anything like that, but I just think it's really hard to be a small business in the U.S. There's so many things. Like if you decide to become a business owner in the U.S. and you don't buy a business that's already in existence, or you don't go into like a big corporate type of company, you are wearing 20 different hats every single day. And it's a lot to upkeep. So yeah, with that said, that kind of reminded me of that. So, thanks.
Yeah. Well, listen, and even in my corporate life, right, I think in corporate, there's a tendency of like hide who you are, right, and just like be this professional that everybody can relate to from what you see in the news maybe or in the movies. And I remember just feeling like that just didn't feel right for me. So I instead leaned into like who I was and being gay and became part of employee resource groups, started to like promote the message. And the movement and the power that I saw in just the simple sharing of some stories and who I was and what I wanted to do around me, it not only made more people gravitate towards me instead of what was assumed that me sharing my story would make people shy away from me. It brought so many more people, those that connected just with being able to tell your story of who you are, whether you're gay or not. And also those that are part of the community and said, I've always wanted to be able to be more vocal. I always wonder if it was okay for me to be, who I am at work, or if that's considered unprofessional. And it's like, no, it's not. By the way, like you can be yourself and it's still profession, still be a professional. So that for me, it was really a big bright light that like you need to continue to tell your story. Like no matter times you've told it, when you have the space to do it, because if it empowers one person, that's already one more person who now has the ability to dream bigger than they thought.
Yeah, and dream bigger, right? Like that's like really where like I think the like thought process, like if you don't think you can do something, you're not going to do it. You wouldn't even try, right? I recently joined the board of the Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce here in LA. So I'm a board member, and it's just been an interesting ride. It's been really good to see other business owners that are gay and that are thriving and they have amazing lives and stuff like that. But you're right. If you don't see yourself, I feel like for me, growing up, like seeing a gay person on TV, especially in Spanish media, it wasn't in a good light. It was more like, oh, that person has a hard life and that person can't get a job, or that person has a really tough position with their family. And it's like, I love my family. Like, I don't have a bad relationship with my family, So for me, it's the complete opposite. And it's like, yeah, they've loved me and stuff like that. But it also wasn't easy to come out either, right? Because so many like cultural norms or things that go through your head. But yeah, man, it's very important. It's very important to be visible, to tell your story. I just feel like, we can get trapped in the day-to-day things. And I'll confess, maybe the last year or two, I've just been like, just want to focus on my business, And, part of that for me is like, I don't want people to be like, oh, like being gay is his whole identity. Because that's part of me. And being a business owner is another part of my identity as well. But also being a son and being like, a boyfriend and being like all this other stuff, like friends and stuff like that. Like, it's just one part of me. It's not all of me, right? So I think that's why I kind of fall into this trap of like, just like only work. And then, my dad's a very, very hard worker. Like I could say he's a workaholic. And you'll be really proud of that, actually. Yeah. Right? And that has its downsides, but I think I learned my work ethic from him. Right? So yeah, it's tough. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's tough to reconcile like all these parts of you. But yeah, I feel like if you're helping business owners with that, I think it's very commending, but also like, it's huge because it's like, not only are you looking at like the business aspect of things, but also the person's like personal lifestyle, right? Like people, like I want to work with you because who are you? Like I've had people reach out to me like on LinkedIn, on Instagram, or like just random platforms like I'm on, and they're like, hey, would you like to work together? I'm like, I don't know you. Like, why are you reaching out to me? Yeah. And it's like, I've gotten people, like, it's like, it's this person, like, in the middle of nowhere, of Idaho, or, like, marketers from, like, abroad, and I'm like, delete. So I'm very good at, like, I don't fall into those messages, but I really want to work with people that I understand, and that I, like, want to be around, and that I think they're very smart and knowledgeable, and they're going to help my business, right? Yes. So, yeah. So this is why part of like the podcast, I ask you so many personal questions because one, I think that's just also my sociology background. So I want to know who you are and like why should my audience trust you, and how you're going to help them like in their businesses. But okay, so let's move on to the next question because I know we're running out of time here. Let's see. We already talked about that one. Oh yeah. In crowded market, everyone's fighting for attention. What do you think are some common branding mistakes that small business owners make, and how can a more inclusive marketing approach help them stand out? I think I talked a little bit about this, but it's just like the
trying to sound too professional or like too like cookie cutter kind of thing, right? Like, oh, this is how they say it, so this is how I'm gonna like copy paste, right? Like it's better to sound personal. It's better to stay true to who you are and the things that people will connect to. So I think that's often a mistake that I see. You know, thinking that like who you are is too small or too different, or also like thinking, and this is, to be honest, it's also a mentality that I had, but like thinking that like everybody is your customer, and while you may have the ability to serve anybody, it is important that you figure out who the majority of your customer base will be, because when you try to connect with everyone, you end up connecting with no one. So I think it's important that you like really narrow it down to who is that customer that really will buy into your story, will buy into who you are, and then you have the ability to now start creating those personas, right? And the customization of your message. And that's where marketing becomes really effective, when you go into the places and the forums and the areas where your customers will understand who you are, what you do, and will want to do business with you. So I think as tempting as it is to say like, I can really do anything with anybody, narrowing it down to who your customer is makes a significant difference in how you market yourself.
No, actually, I think that's really good advice you're giving out, because I think so many people just start off with that dream of like wanting to be their own business owner and wanting that freedom, but it comes with the big price tag.
Yes.
If you just take on, I think in the beginning, like I'll be honest with even like my own experience, I did take on anyone that was like, hey, can you do my taxes? But I also was doing taxes at night when I got home from work, and then on the weekends for like 2 or 3 years. So for me, it was more of like a side thing, right? Side hustle. Now that 15 years later, I'm like, I only want to work with business owners, right? And part of me feels a little guilty, or a little, I don't know what the word is. I also started doing taxes, I think, at one point, because I was like, hey, if these individuals can use the legal tax code and legitimately and pay less taxes, why can't my father, why can't my sister, why can't my uncle use the tax system legally, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, it was like, why can't these Latinos use it like that, right? So that's how I started thinking about it in the beginning. And I think that's one of the reasons that I pushed myself to be like, I have to go solo, right? I always worked for blonde hair, blue eye, white man. Mm-hmm. Those were all my employers. And I'm very thankful to what teachings they gave me and stuff like that, and what I learned at their companies. But I always felt like I did all the work, So yes, no, I mean, niching and really understanding your client base, I think it's something that you can forget so easily when you're in your business every day, right? Because there's so much to do, and then you get hit with this, and then you're like, then another letter comes in, and then you get an email from your accountant, and then you have to do this, like, or bookkeeping and stuff like that. So I totally get it. It's so much. So I mean, I feel at this point, like, you really need to ask for help, as a business owner, because you can't do it all. You really can't do it. And in terms of marketing, that's why you're here. You can help them out with that,
Yes. Yeah. And the automation part of that too, right? Because like right now we're in a world where technology has really progressed in the last couple of years in a way that it can make a lot of the tasks that you do. And it's not about replacing people. And I think there's a misconception that like technology is here to just replace humans. It's like replace the time you're using that is not giving you that ROI, right? It's the time that you're using that is administrative, that could be repetitive, with automation, so that then you can free up your time and like connect and do more. Really, it does make more of a difference than people sometimes give it credit for.
And you know what? It's so hard, I think, sometimes for small businesses to switch that mentality, I know before we jumped on, we were talking about like, it's not broken, why fix it? Mm-hmm. Like me personally, sometimes I do feel that way, because I think I get so tired of like the long days and the long weeks, and then you have to work on the weekends and stuff like that, right? But I'm currently like helping this business like to buy another business. So we've been looking into all their financials, their protocols, their processes and stuff like that. And I think just by automating, this client's going to be able to save around $20,000 a year, right? So it's current expenses that company is incurring. And like, as I'm going through the financials, I'm looking at all these numbers and I'm like, why are they spending this money on that? Like, or so like each business or each field has different like things that they will spend money on, for example. And I'm like, that makes sense. Okay, that's something they have to pay, or there's no way around that. But other expenses, I'm like, this can be cut out, like manual payroll. Right? Manual payroll is costing companies so much. And I just had a girl on the podcast, and she's from Paychecks, and they can automate your payroll from like one quarter to the next, or for 1 month to the next. There's no reason for anyone to be doing manual payroll anymore or writing checks out to their employees or independent contractors. So it amazes me how just by automating like maybe 2 or 3 little processes that we looked at, he's gonna save $20,000. Like once the buyout is completed and all these changes are implemented. It might take a year, right? But like, what can you do with $20,000? You can hire more help. You can pay your taxes. There's a lot of things you can do with $20,000. So that's what that reminded me of right now. And I mean, we've reached our last question. So I'm going to just read this question to you and you tell me, because you already answered the Rainbow Bee questions. We're going to skip that one. But yes, for Latino and LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs, just starting out and feeling overwhelmed, what is one small but impactful step that they can take today to start building a more authentic, automated, and aligned brand?
Yes. I think starting a business, starting a new journey in general, it's overwhelming and it feels like you need to know it all to have it right. Let me tell you the truth. Most people don't know what they're doing when they start. The difference is that they start, right? They take the first step. So I think that is probably one of the biggest advice. Like start even small, but be honest about it. Like you don't need a perfect logo. You don't need a full funnel of customers to fully get started. Start with like why. What problem are you solving, right? And why is this important to you? And I think that just putting that on paper or in a digital note in a place where you can see it, that will start giving you the principles of what you need to create your message, to create a clear story, and to understand it may even drive what your product truly does, right? And what it makes it unique. And there's this like little saying that mom will tell me, it's like write it for your abuela to understand, kind of, it's like, it's gotta, what you're gonna do as a business, it's gotta be clear enough for somebody who's not familiar with it to understand. And, there's the ability to do that. So I think start that with that mentality. How would my abuela understand what I'm doing, right? And I would explain this to her. And I think once you start there, then you figure it out. Look, you don't have to have the full pile of things ready. With your first customer, you get some experience and you start understanding what you need, to do more and more efficient, and then you continue to go in that way. But if you have that inspiration, that drive to be a business owner, to have your own legacy, then start. As simple as that sounds, it's just the difference between the people that do it and don't.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's really good advice, actually. I feel like so many people don't start, or so many people are afraid of starting. Because what if it fails? And maybe not when I started this business. I didn't think it was going to fail because I already had clients. But starting my podcast.
Yeah.
I remember that summer we went through a couple tasks or scenarios where we're like, what the podcast going to be about? What's the why and all this stuff like that. And I remember thinking like, who's going to listen to me? Like, I'm not anyone, And for a moment there, I think it was the summer of 2022. That I was like, oh, I'm going to take a pause. Like, I just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. But I think that, God, everyone goes through those feelings, I mean, we are sometimes our harshest critics. Because my mentor at the time was like, you're so good for this. You should do it. You can totally do it. And then they were amping me up and this and that. And I'm like, person more excited than I am. I was like, what are they seeing that I don't see? But it's so interesting because when you are yourself, I mean, it's not like I'm looking at myself from the outside, So it's a very different lens that people look at you at. And sometimes I've learned that we gotta take those little moments as silent whispers from God that say you were meant to do this, or you could do this. It's up to you if you want to do it or not. At the end of the day, you can always say no, right? So, and now it's 2025, so 3 years later, here I am still. But no, thank you so much, Ricardo, for that advice. I think it's great advice. I think the information you gave on here is amazing. Also, so people can reach you through your website. Put the website on the notes of the show and your Instagram handle as well, so people can reach to you. But let's say it one more time, so people, in case they're listening, they can write it down the first time. But
of course,
your Instagram handle and then your website.
Yes, website is poppymarketingandconsulting.com, and the handle for Instagram is @poppymarketingandconsulting.
Okay. Awesome, Ricardo. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Randy, for having me, and thank you, to the audience for listening. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your network. Your support helps our Latinx business community grow stronger with every listen, and I truly invite you to connect with us. Send us your questions, your comments, or even your own business stories to randy@rgtaxes.com. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep building your business, and keep growing your business mindset.